Steve, how did we get to this point with the Oakland A's with nobody showing up and now we're headed to Vegas?
Well, the nobody showing up part and Vegas are intertwined. So the team was systematically dismantled after the 21 season, where they were actually in first place until about mid-August. And then, they made some moves at the deadline. Team seemed like it was going to contend for the AL West title, fell flat. Afterwards, they pretty much told everyone, hey, we're going to dismantle this team. It's time for a rebuild. So the fans are ready for another rebuild. But also at the same time, they're saying, yeah, we thought we were going to be all into Oakland. We're rooted in Oakland is the thing that they always would say. But we're also doing what they call a parallel paths with Las Vegas. And so that turned the fans off completely. Then going into the 22 season, they traded everyone right after the lockout. Chapman gone, Olsen gone, Bassett, Mania. And then they almost pretty much doubled season ticket prices. So you have a team that is pretty much decimated. So you mentioned Major League. It's just like that. Team is decimated. It's just a systematic trying to get rid of all of the Oakland fans. They've done a great job. And now you have this Vegas thing where it seems like it could happen as soon as this week, maybe, if they can get this through the legislature. But we don't know that yet. This ownership has been so, I guess, incompetent with all of these times trying to move to a new stadium that you can't really just look at it and say, oh, yeah, Vegas is definitely 100% happening.
What do we know about the owner?
Well, he's the heir of the Gap fortune. We know that. He's very reclusive. There were photos of him yesterday with President Dave Cavell lobbying politicians in Nevada. That's the first time we've seen him in months, if not over a year. We used to see him behind the plate sometimes at the Coliseum. We haven't seen him at all. He won't show his face there now for good reason. We know that he doesn't really spend on players. He also owns the Earthquakes. They have a new stadium in San Jose. They're in the bottom half of the MLS in spending still. So this idea that if they get a new stadium, the A's are going to be a big market team, questionable. But we don't really know much beyond that. He doesn't talk to the media ever.
Well, if he doesn't like being around people, he should go to an Oakland A's game. Then he'd be all alone there. Why does Vegas want the A's?
I think there's a few reasons why. I'm not really sure how much the populace wants the A's, but Vegas is a big union town, and the unions are fully behind building a stadium and the possible jobs that can come from the construction, and then the workers inside the stadium, the concession workers. And Las Vegas seems hell-bent kind of on being a big league town, and they're one of the towns, I think this is why the A's have been drawn to them. They're one of the towns that said, we want this kind of stuff here, and we will actually consider at least, bumping some tax districts to this, raising taxes for that. That maybe they're a little bit reticent because of how much money they gave the Raiders, but I think that they're a little bit more willing than Oakland, which was in talks with the A's to build just a ridiculous complex, what they call Howard Terminal, right on the water. But there's a lot of hoops to jump through in California when you're building stadiums. In Vegas, maybe a little bit easier. Also, Bally Corp is underwriting kind of this project. They entered into a binding agreement, which wasn't binding because they got out of it over at the Wild Wild West Casino. And then they went over to the Tropicana, and Bally owns that property. And then Bally said that they're going to pretty much be all intertwined with the A's, with hotels and gaming and all these other things. And I think Vegas is probably pretty friendly to these casino interests.
What's the timeline that the A's can move?
Well, if this all goes down and the governor is trying to get this going so that it gets approved on the last day of the legislative session, which would be Monday. If it doesn't, he might call a special session. If it does get approved this year, then the earliest they say would be 2027 for a retractable roof, 9-acre stadium. So yeah, who knows what happens then? Do they possibly stay in Oakland? Do they move to Sacramento? Do they move to their AAA ballpark in Las Vegas? No one knows.